Welcome to Holly History, where we discuss what you want to hear.
No fake news, no alternative facts.
Just history all the time.
Greetings from the Holly Central School District Library. This is Holly History, where we discuss what you want to hear. I'm Nick DeMoro. I'm joined today by Matt Hennard, Mike Chrisman, and Dan Light. The full room today, and we have the YouTube celeb in the room, the master of the sandwiches, the zombie crossbow, some of the best YouTube. How many subscribers are you up to right now?
I don't know, over 100 maybe.
Over 100? That's pretty solid. I mean, and if we can combine exchange followerships, because we have over 100 and you have over 100.
Oh.
So we can double our subscribers.
I have to say the zombie crossbow is legendary.
That was my favorite. You know what? I take that back. I like the sandwich one better.
Okay.
That was my favorite. I've watched that one a couple times.
Okay, we'll try to put more sandwich footage on the
If you
video.
could get more sandwiches.
Okay, more food footage.
More food. And the seeds.
That's hard to believe, actually, that Mr. DeMoro wants more food footage.
I know.
Yeah,
it's shocking.
super hard.
That's shocking.
Right.
You did the pumpkin seed one too, right?
Pumpkin seed, Carolina Reaper pumpkin seeds.
And I tried them and they were good. I was a little nervous because I do hot sauce stuff fine.
You tried the ones that he made, or you
Yes.
made your own?
No, I tried the ones he made. Those are good. If I made, I probably would have screwed them up. So, a couple things. Make sure you email us your questions, hollyhistory65@gmail.com, or tweet us at hollyhistory. This is going to be our third show of the year, I'm pretty sure. Much more is in the works. Working on a genocide episode right now, which students love, like death and gore, probably for the wrong reasons. But you know what? I mean, the genocide topic is a topic they love to definitely look at. Much more in the works, but today we're going to talk about historical movies. I think movies are something, the reason we all fell in love with history at some point, one or another. Just love historical movies. We've gone to see movies. Went to see Dunkirk that one time. Mm-hmm. It was the due date. We're hoping to get out to see They Shall Not Grow Old. Hopefully December 27th. I think that's going to be out. Hopefully we can get to see that one. So I'm going to start with Mike. Mike teaches a history through film class. So Mike, what role should and can historical movies play in people learning about history? Because you kind of answer this question with your class, so we want to hear from you.
Well, here at Holly, we teach a course on history through film. And one of the main focuses of that class is to look at film. How accurate do they get things? Recognizing the fact that the ultimate goal of any film is to make money, right? And to get people to come out and fill seats. But they're not necessarily beholden to getting things historically accurate. And I got to be honest, I struggled with this when I first started teaching. I hesitated to show film clips, but I began to realize as years went by, students are incredibly visual. And even if you just get the essence of what you're trying to teach them, the one year I showed a number of clips of Cinderella Man to really kind of demonstrate some of the real things that we forget, like the day-to-day ins and outs of the Depression. There's a great scene in the Cinderella Man where they're having a birthday party and they're singing Happy Birthday, and then when they get to Happy Birthday 2, they sing every kid's name. And we have a discussion about how Depression is a time period where people don't have extra flour, eggs, milk, and you begin to realize that they're singing this outside of a church. The church people have pooled their resources, and it's chocolate cake, and the kids are devouring. This is a treat. This is your birthday treat, and that's your present, whether your birthday's in December and it's August or whatnot, right? So kids, I thought, really kind of latched onto that. I show a lot of film clips now, and I have a ridiculous library at this point in my room of things. Use a lot more YouTube than I ever thought I would use as a teacher. I know there's a lot of teachers out there, including the folks in this room, who use a lot of YouTube. But it really helps students to understand the visual. We can explain things and we know what it looks like or kind of look like, but for them, it's hard for them to visualize it. So I think it's important. I think it does have a place, but I also think it has a place that's measured. As teachers, we have a responsibility to kind of lay the groundwork for that and to make sure they understand what they're seeing. I find that now I pause scenes a lot more than I used to.
They hate
My
that
kids
too.
get
They
all
can't
mad at
stand
me
it.
for that
Yeah.
all the time because I'm constantly stopping and they're like, let's watch the movie. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to understand why we're watching this movie,
Right.
and what we're doing. I have a similar. I use The Last Samurai, and we just did the Meiji restoration, right? And I preface them with very Hollywood, right? This whole idea. And I don't show a lot of the background stuff and all that. I use it more, like you said, as an illustration. You know, when Tom Cruise is on the boat pulling into Yokohama Harbor, right? And like you see the steamships, and we talk about how, you know, that harbor just maybe 10 years before would have been closed, and seeing any kind of ship in that harbor outside of like a canoe for fishing would have been completely random. And then you talk about like killing the idea of killing the old customs of Japan, right? And I show that very last scene where they're using the Gatling gun, right? And it's literally the samurai running into a slaughter essentially of modern technology. And I said, this is what the Meiji restoration is all about, right? They're literally killing the old style, right, and welcoming in this new industrial imperial age. And when you see that in that visual, especially something like that, you know, with the music and all of the Hollywood dramatization, that's what they connect with.
Well, they'll remember it, and I think the visual, Mike, you said it best. The visual piece is so important.
For sure.
They got to have that visual piece. So we're going to jump right into like some opinion now and some fun stuff. What is your favorite historical film and why? Dan or Matt, you want to start?
Yeah, I don't want to start. You go
All right,
ahead. You
All
start.
right, Matt, go ahead.
So I guess I would say, I don't know why I love Gangs of New York. I love Daniel Day-Lewis, right? And to me, to see, I guess you call it the humble beginnings of what is New York City, right? And the idea, it shows a lot of the things that were affecting the U.S., right, around the time of the Civil War.
Race, the issue
right?
of race.
The issue of race, right? Nativism.
Tweed machine.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Political corruptness, right, all that kind of stuff, but also the idea of like immigration, right, the amount of Irish immigrants coming in, and how they're catching them coming right off the boat and signing them up.
Yeah.
It's like you're coming into the country, right, and what better way? Grab you, give you a job, right?
I love that scene as the coffins are being offloaded off the boat. The guys are getting a gun in a uniform and being put back onto a boat, and the same boat heading back. So
Okay, so let me just jump in here. So you're talking about Irish immigration, which now this is not one of the most historically accurate films, but have you guys seen Far and Away?
I knew he was going Far and Away.
Far and Away.
He was going to say
The
that.
Irish
Land
immigrants
Rush.
living in just poverty in New York City, just beating each other up, boxing, looking to make a new world. It's funny when you start talking about that. I think of, man, Far and
That's
Away.
what I think
It's
of,
like
too.
the first thing I
The
think
scene
of.
where he punches the horse at the Land Rush, the students
gosh.
freak out. Did he just punch a horse? I'm like, no animals were harmed in making this film.
well, I also show that scene where they're talking. So they go to the whorehouse, right, to get a place to stay. You can hear the politician in the background talk about these damn Italians coming in and taking Irish jobs. And I use that as a great segue of, the immigrants are all competing with each other for jobs too. So the Irish hate the Italians hate the Russians hate the Germans. It all lends into all these different power structures that are going on, which what makes those films like Gangs of New York it's an interesting film. Yeah,
Absolutely. I just like the visualization of it too. One of my favorite parts about historical movies is, you know, we don't have the ability to time travel as humans yet, right? And hopefully maybe
Keyword there, yet.
and hopefully maybe we never do because butterfly effect and all that. But you know, historical films are a way to be transported to that time, and for history geeks like ourselves,
Well, they're fun.
right?
At the end of the day, it's fun.
It is, and that's why, you know, understanding accuracy and inaccuracy.
Why are you looking
is
at me
really
when you say
important. Just because every time
Everybody
watching-
looks at me when
sometimes you
accuracy-
can value a film for its entertainment,
I'm gonna
and
do
you don't
that
have
today.
to always value the film.
I'm going to do
for
that
its-
today.
All right,
I
all right,
am.
all right,
I
all right,
am.
all right.
Like, you
Well,
believe me.
some of the best films don't, you know, like I say, I have trouble finding one film that I
Just
it's-
what's on your mind then? What's one that's on your
Okay,
mind?
so I've got a bunch of different scenes that I love, and I know
Okay.
Mike shows this one, Mike Chrisman. I love, you know, who knows, but I love the scene from Ben-Hur and the Chariot race scene. I love that. I've shown that for years to different groups of kids that I've taught, and I just think it's so cool, the whole Circus Maximus. Yeah, when I was a freshman in high school at Brockport, I remember we all went over and we saw Gandhi. And I know it's a long movie and everything, but it is an unbelievable movie. And it's it's
actually
a
showed
great,
that
it's a
movie,
great
yeah.
movie. And if you can show the whole thing, it's awesome. It's kind of tough for me to show the kids the whole movie, but I always, you know, go to the best scenes to try to get through that kind of stuff. So Gandhi, I like the Ben-Hur scenes. I love History of the World, but that's not really the most accurate. Mel Brooks, for you young folks out there, don't go watching that because I don't want to get in trouble here. But I got a few favorite scenes that I like from a bunch of different movies.
It's a good movie. Mike?
So I much like Matt. I define it as entertaining films and historically accurate films. And I love my teach that history through film class. I love the whole movie going experience from the time you walk in till the time you walk out. As a kid, I was always drawn to it. Right. So the one film that I find highly entertaining is more historically accurate than a lot of people give it credit for is Tombstone.
Love Tombstone.
Amen.
What a great lineup of great actors, and tells a fantastic story. Probably one of the most overdone stories of the Old West, the shootout at the OK Corral. But they got a lot right, and that's what I respect about it. They used a lot of primary source work, and really also let the actors and actresses kind of take a little bit of license with it as well.
Val Kilmer's the man.
Val Kilmer
the best.
as Doc Holliday
Doc
is
Holliday
the most
ever.
entertaining Doc Holliday I've ever seen.
No doubt.
It's fun. It's witty.
I don't even think of it as a historical movie. That's
Yeah.
how much
I
love
agree.
it.
It's so
Like it doesn't
entertaining.
even strike me as a historical movie. It's just like straight entertainment.
The scene where he comes out in the forest, where Doc Holliday does. He's like, wow, John Ringo, look, somebody just walked over your grave. I say, I'm your Huckleberry. That is that scene every time. I mean, I have a I'm your Huckleberry T-shirt.
That's
I have the T-shirt.
One of those movies where you see it on TV, you can't.
It was.
can't
I
keep
bought the
clicking,
T-shirt at 2 a.m. when I was watching it, and I said, "There's got to be an I'm your Huckleberry T-shirt," and I bought it.
It's
I
probably
had
one of the
to-
most quotable movies
For
in
sure.
recent
For
history,
sure.
just because it has so many great one-liners. But a fun movie, entertaining movie, and a movie that kind of harkens back and actually tips its cap, pardon the pun, a little bit to old westerns. Charlton Heston makes a cameo appearance. The narrator at the end, and I can't remember his name. I can picture him in my head. The narrator at the end is one of the old Western cowboy actors. So they really did their homework, right? They really understood and paid homage to their roots as well. And in America, I mean, what better genre of American film than a Western?
No doubt.
So yeah.
All right.
My choice harkens back to my childhood, and if Dr.
Oh.
Oberg ever.
So your childhood, as when the rest of us were
old, yeah. Dr. Oberg, if he's listening, this will be very disappointing to me. It's Last of the Mohicans. I grew up, and that was one of the first movies I ever remember, history-wise, watching. It's so inaccurate. First of all, it's the Mohican people. It's not even the Mohican people. I mean, James Fenimore Cooper didn't even get that right. But, alas, it's so entertaining. I don't know. I love the French Indian War, and that was with Fort Niagara in my backyard. It was like I had a film and a connection right away to what I loved and what I wanted to do, and then getting into work there. And I love the film. Obviously, the inaccuracies, every musket goes off every time. Apparently, you can pick people off at hundreds of yards with smoothbore muskets.
I love the fact that
Doesn't work that
Hawkeye
way.
is what's his name there? Chuck Norris, right? Before
Oh,
Chuck
yeah.
Norris.
Oh, yeah.
Hawkeye by himself takes out the entire Algonquin, war party by himself. It's
Yep.
amazing.
single-handedly.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Wes Studi as the Huron war captain of Magua. It's just so and they got the whole noble savage thing going on in the movie. It's just my nostalgia of it will never die, and my wife hates the movie. I don't think anybody besides my father and I really talk. Daniel Day-Lewis is in it too. That's the other thing.
He is. Daniel
And
Day-Lewis
he
is in it, but
maybe the best actor of the generation. You know what I mean?
I never got into it.
And what happened to Fort William Henry certainly is kind of damaging and a little bit misunderstanding with Native American culture.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that happened was because Native peoples, when they went on campaigns, they were expected loot to help their families in the winter. They were expected to do that stuff, and that deal between Montcalm and Monroe is struck in a way in real history where it's you're not gonna loot, you're not gonna be able to do any of this stuff. Too bad, so sad. I don't really like you anyways. Montcalm really didn't like his Native American allies, and the governor, Vaudreuil, another whole thing, was the one that sent him with the campaign. And it makes him look first of all, it makes Montcalm look bad, and it makes the Native Americans look like bloodthirsty people, which is not the case. The massacre of Fort Henry was totally motivated by the fact these people wanted to get things to survive for that winter, and they were kind of had their back turned on them. Was it brutal? Sure. Did people in this people die? Yeah. But it was not in like the whole.
Yeah, but if an imperial power something does like that, it's like, oh, all's fair in love and war.
Oh, of course.
If somebody else does it, it's,
of course.
oh, you guys are savage.
And if you see the scene, where they're on the sides of them in the woods, and if you watch the movie enough, they're the same Native Americans, the same actors, the same shot. They just flip them around.
Yes.
To make it look like they got their guns walking one way and their guns walking the other way, and it's like. Oh my goodness.
Okay, can I throw in some World War stuff? We haven't really talked about the World Wars. And
No.
I heard you mention, we were talking a little bit before I got in here, and Nick, you mentioned Saving Private Ryan.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable film.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg. But let me just throw a couple others out there as I'm sitting here thinking, listening to you guys talk about this. Some of my favorite movies. Okay, number one is Sergeant York. And I know it's very old.
Wow, that's a classic.
Okay, when we talk about Alvin York from Tennessee, that's a movie I've been showing it 3 years now. The kids enjoy it because, in theory, from World War I know you mentioned the movie that's coming out again. What's it called again? In color now?
They Shall Not Grow Old.
They Shall Not Grow Old. Okay, a couple others though. Another couple movies I've shown that I really enjoy, and it's I think it is very accurate. Is The Longest Day, even
That
with
one
John
they
Wayne.
used it all. They interviewed a lot of people for that.
Playing it. And here's another one. In my house growing up, my father, one of his favorite historical movies, and he was a history teacher too, was Patton. Mm-hmm. And so, when we're throwing out some movies here, as we hit the World Wars, I know it's kind of big in a lot of hearts and minds, but I hate to miss anything historically when we're talking
movies.
about.
World War II gets all the play, though,
does.
in the movies. World War I
That's
very
changing.
rarely
I mean,
gets...
I'm going to talk about Journey's End later as an accurate film. That was a great movie. I just saw it, but... so what are some of the most historically inaccurate films you've ever seen? I got a list here of a few things Matt had. We'll start with Gladiator. Gladiator, again, entertaining value.
I was gonna say,
love the movie.
I was entertained. So
I love the movie.
The answer
I
to the
was
question,
not
are you entertained?
entertained.
Yes, I was.
well played.
I guess a lot of my professor, Jim Williams in college, told me actually that a lot of historians actually resigned from the film, or even if they stayed on, refused to have their names attached to it. It was that bad. I mean, the idea of, first of all, they missed a bunch of stuff with Commodus and Marcus Aurelius, obviously. The idea that gladiators died every time is not accurate. I'm pretty sure that they, a lot of times, it was so expensive for these guys.
Well, that was the thing, yeah.
And you're not killing these people
They
every
are
time you're going.
expensive, right? People would not have been happy just forking over that much money for the slaughter every single time.
Not to mention the best scene in the movie besides Russell Crowe killing Commodus probably is the open...
spoiler alert. Great job.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, you can't watch it now, people. It's been ruined for you forever.
Mr. Tomorrow just ruined Gladiator
I'll fall on that
forever.
grenade.
That's fine.
This is the beginning scene with the battle.
Yeah.
That scene is... And that scene...
Against the Gauls, right?
Germanic tribes,
yeah.
which there's a whole debate of Gauls.
Right, you assume
Gauls,
it's like-
Germans,
right,
Celts,
right,
which is
right,
which.
right.
You can sit there all day. Second one...
They're all the same, aren't they?
Well, there's a great quote, and Dan Carlin talks about one of his shows. He's like, a Celt is somebody who says they're Celtic.
Right.
I mean, it's like
That's fantastic.
it's a mess. Braveheart, Mike. You
God.
do this in history through
Oh,
film.
jeez.
You could take over because there's
yeah.
great movie,
One of my favorite
Great
movies
movie.
of all time.
entertaining. Mike, take it away.
So it's a film that we use when we do the world history section of History Through Film. I always start with it. Believe it or not, a lot of students have not seen it, right? Because it's older. Those of us in the room are a little bit older. It's from beyond. It's before their time. On the entertainment factor, it's off the charts. I mean, it has everything you could ever want. It has love, it has betrayal, it has war, it has a great storyline, great
Comedy.
characters, comedy.
Right.
Steven,
Love
the Brits.
Steven the Irishman's one of my all-time
Oh my
favorite
gosh, for
characters in
sure,
that film,
for
right?
sure.
But you start looking at the timeline and actually the way things play out, and the timeline's just so bad. I mean, it's just when and I hate to shatter anybody who loves the movie, but when Braveheart's executed, the Queen is only 4. So the love story that they try to play out there, and unless things are really really strange, it couldn't have played out the way that
Not working.
That was a good way to put that.
This is really-
I didn't know how you were going to explain it, but
and the real questions too about Braveheart and the research on William Wallace. Most of the historical research done on William Wallace has been done through word of mouth. So I mean, it's
and they
it's so
completely
difficult
discredit
to figure out.
Robert the Bruce.
Well,
Robert the Bruce deserves what I mean. Robert the Bruce's nickname was Braveheart,
Correct.
right?
And that was the question that I had for my group this year was the film historically accurate as far as the name goes? Because Robert the Bruce is a main character in that film. He's the key character. So did people misunderstand the term Braveheart? Or did the producers get it wrong and name it and they just marketed it wrong?
Outlaw King just came out on Netflix.
I can see that.
Chris Pine is Robert the Bruce.
Really?
And it actually starts over with Wallace isn't a character, but they're putting his body parts up in London, and
So it
that's
starts
where it
with
picks
his
up.
execution.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
picks up
beginning.
there, and it was a solid movie.
What's it
It
called?
was pretty good. Outlaw King. It's on Netflix.
Outlaw King.
It was pretty solid. I mean, Chris Pine's in it. He
I like
plays-
Chris Pine a lot.
Yeah, and fortunately, I got to watch it because my wife's a Chris Pine fan. So she did watch it with me.
Can't imagine why she
She
did.
did like it. Yeah, I know. Well, he's got a weird hairdo, so I was like, it's that
Lucky for
it's
you.
that medieval cut, right? It's that medieval cut. The next one I have here, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's low hanging fruit. Is Pocahontas.
Trees don't talk?
Trees don't talk.
Oh.
Raccoons don't communicate.
Raccoons don't communicate through.
Mr. Like, come on.
Sounds-
I can't believe you're going with cartoons here. I didn't even realize we were going that far.
That's what I'm saying. It's low hanging. It's low hanging fruit.
I know.
It's low hanging.
I'm still laughing. I'm still thinking of like Monty Python, The Black Knight, right now with William Wallace.
Dan, have you ever
Bring forth the holy hand grenade.
Yes. Monty Python.
Dan, in 7th grade, have you ever had 7th graders ask you if Pocahontas is based
Oh
on
yeah,
this?
they love it. Oh, they think it's so great. And doesn't she? Am I mistaken here? But doesn't she like marry John Smith or something?
In the
And
film,
we know that
yes.
she
No,
marries
she doesn't
John
marry him in the
Rolfe,
film.
and
Not until Pocahontas 2, right?
But that's John Rolfe she marries.
yeah, she marries John Rolfe.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
But
Yeah.
Smith gets sent back, which is maybe one of the more accurate.
Oh, and she goes back, and they both die.
She doesn't go back with him though. She goes back with Rolfe, not John Smith.
Well, no, that's what I mean.
Yeah, the
she goes
second
back
one.
with Rolfe.
In the
Oh, I don't know.
second
I haven't seen him, so it doesn't
No, yeah,
matter to me.
so-
I just know it's
And
Disney
Mel,
cartoon.
ironically, Mel Gibson's the voice.
He is. He
Of
is. Why is he
John
associated
Smith.
with so
He
many
always is.
historically
I'm telling you.
inaccurate movies?
I'm
right?
telling you. I mean,
Braveheart, The Patriot, Pocahontas.
unfortunately, with Pocahontas, it gives them the wrong idea about like that whole thing. Like John Smith being a good guy, which he was not. By the way, gets sent back, and I found this out. I can't remember which class in college. He gets sent back because he has an accident in a canoe with gunpowder and kind of blows off like below his waist a little
What?
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's his injury. Yeah, that's why he gets sent back.
So you bring up the Patriot. I mean,
All right, so we can
So
skip.
Swamp
Hang
Thing.
on, let's do the
So-
Patriot. Let's do the
so-
Patriot next.
so the
History of the
Patriot-
World according to Mel Gibson.
The Patriot is a combination of Braveheart and an American Greek tragedy. No, seriously, because it's an American version of
That's a good
Braveheart. Just
description.
because
It's a good
of all the, again, it's a great plot line, right? But the historical accuracy of it is just off the charts bad.
Well, the Patriot has a decent scene in Camden. Like the scene with Camden where they watch from the top. That's actually how 18th century warfare is like kind of
I
fought.
cannot get past the fact that when the British soldiers show up to Gibson's plantation, they say,
Oh my
take the
God.
slaves
Okay.
away.
Yep.
And they look at the soldiers and say, we're not slaves, we're free men.
And we work this
In-
land as free
in
men.
revolutionary
Yes. Not-
South Carolina.
Right,
It's-
right,
it's
right,
offensive.
Right.
It can't happen that
Right,
way. I'm
right,
sorry.
right.
It's South Carolina. Well, and then you went to a conference where they explained that, and
Yes.
they were like, oh, what it would make his character, the audience would be like, oh my God, I'm rooting for a slave owner.
Right. He would,
You know?
he would be too, it would complicate his character too
Well, he's a mixture of Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, who was a quote unquote, I don't like using this term because I don't feel it's accurate, guerrilla fighter
Right.
in the South. He's loosely based off him. He's loosely based off Daniel Morgan,
Yep.
who's
Right,
a
it's like a
rifleman.
compilation of
It's a
different characters.
it's an amalgamation of so many things, and like the final battle's an amalgamation too.
Yes.
Because it's amalgamation of the Battle of Cowpens and Guilford Courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, like Nathaniel Greene wasn't at Cowpens, but he was at Guilford. In the movies, he's at the final battle.
And in
It's
all
so
my
confusing.
historical research, I've never seen anyone actually use an American flag to stab a horse to bring it down. Just
like a jab, like a spear.
Yeah, right.
And again, another movie. Every gun works every time. I've worked with those guns for 8 years. It doesn't work that way. 1 in 5 shots doesn't go off, and there's no explanation. I mean, it's the spark from the flint. The flint's not sharp enough. It's too windy. It blows out of the pan. And you hit everything too every time.
Yeah.
Oh, and then
They're the
you have like a
most-
9-year-old boy shooting at the one scene
Yes.
in the ravine, and he's hitting everything. Aim small, miss small.
I was just gonna say.
The most his accurate, right, smooth bore, black powder weapons ever invented. That's what.
Yes.
They,
Yep.
That's all.
And I mean, there are rifles, and they reload so fast.
Well, then he goes Chuck Norris on the entire British Army.
Oh, I know. That scene is just like...
Just saying.
Again, but a movie, though, if it's on TV,
I'll watch
I'm going to not turn it off. I'm going to watch it. That's the problem with all these movies. Like, oh, it's inaccurate. I'm still
Well,
gonna
let me
watch
just tell
it.
you that when I first started working here, right, and Mike started teaching using Braveheart in his world history through film class, it essentially ruined everything that I had because I loved Braveheart, and then he just started picking it apart, and I was like, you're destroying this movie for me now.
I had a student a couple of years ago got really mad at me because he's like, this was my favorite movie.
I loved that movie.
All right, and then we close it out with 300, right?
300, right?
300, that film just...
At least 300 problems with that film.
Well, you mean...
Oh, my God.
That was a straight dad joke right there. Nice job. The kids in my class would have called that a dad joke. They'd have been like, there it is.
Absolutely.
There it is.
I can't.
From the way that Xerxes is brought in and
Oh, my
introduced,
gosh. Right,
come
right.
on. And, the
Larger,
bottomless pit that
right.
you throw the messenger into.
Right. Larger than life, all those ghost-like assassin
Right.
figures, right? Like, come on.
Fighting for
Come
free
on.
Greece, even though the Helots are a population enslaved by the Spartans, just completely leave that out of the narrative. And how about all the Athenians that were at the battle and wasn't
Right.
just alas. What are the most...
That's the second alas today, by the way.
What's that?
Your alas.
It's like me with the word it's like me with the word apropos.
Apropos, right.
I'll start just using words like I don't understand it. It just kind of just channels through me. I had a weird childhood where you'd read like poems by Robert Frost at like 5 years old to understand try to understand the meaning of that. Like, or read me Last of the Mohicans. See, I'm all screwed up now. Thanks, Dad. Appreciate it.
We're blaming Tony DeMoro
Yeah.
right now. Is that what we're doing?
What are the most historically accurate films you've ever seen? And this will blend with our next question, which is like, what's one historical movie everybody should see? So they'll blend together. So what's the most historically accurate film you've ever seen? Mike, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm going to go back to one that Melinda bet most of our students have never seen or heard of. It's called Tora, 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 which was, if I remember correctly, it's late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in that time period is when it's created. Tora, Tora, Tora was the code name that the Japanese attacking first wave was supposed to send back to the fleet if the attack on Pearl Harbor was a success in being a surprise. Probably the most historically accurate film on Pearl Harbor. Not the film
You
Pearl
mean it's
Harbor.
not Kate Beckinsale and
No,
Josh
Oh
Hartnett
my
and
gosh.
Ben Affleck?
Good
Hey,
Lord.
that's a
That would go
shout out to Meg Harrington right there, who thinks that Pearl Harbor is like the greatest movie ever, and we got into
That
a
would
debate.
actually go into
we got
the
into a
previous
debate in
category we
study
just
hall
had.
the other
I
day
can't wait
about
to
how
get to World War
terrible,
II.
terrible
Oh my
it is.
goodness. Oh,
Yeah, make
No.
sure.
Tora, Tora, Tora has an all-star cast, really well done, well researched, not over the top like the Pearl Harbor movie. And Megan and I are gonna have to have a chat at some point. Then Megan, we're gonna have a chat.
She's gonna be
in
upset.
class. I have
For
no
sure.
doubt. But really kind of outlays not only Japanese reasons for the attack, but why the Americans were so taken by surprise. And really just well done. They used, I guess maybe sometimes the older films because they don't rely on CGI
Well, they can't.
and those other things because they didn't have the technology. They had to maneuver around things in a different way. So cinematically, they're able to use different tools with which to put information out there. So that's probably one of the most historically accurate films I've seen.
Dan?
I'm going to go with Patton again,
Yeah.
just because they did such a nice job on that. That was a great movie. And certainly Gandhi. I mean, to me, those are the two big ones
yeah.
for me.
Yeah, they did a good job in both.
I just want to throw one out there, though. Titanic was not
Oh,
very
man.
accurate, just so you know. I just want to
Right.
clear that up if anyone wonders about
There was
Titanic.
room on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I know, right?
Room on the
That's-
door.
yeah.
Man.
So yeah, I mean, I love Gandhi. I use Gandhi in my class. I skip the whole South Africa part though, because sometimes the kids get confused and they peg him as South African, not Indian. But and I know that it leaves out certain things about Gandhi's personality and some other things that
Controversial.
right? That are controversial. But as far as like depicting what he did and the way he was able to rally the people of India and stuff, one of my favorites. You mentioned one earlier, 12 Years a Slave. Right?
Oh, we're saving for the next category.
Oh, we are. Okay.
But you can still say it.
No.
No, you can say
I
it.
just mentioned it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's phenomenal. Great movie. And this, honestly, I don't know. There are parts of Hotel Rwanda that are incredibly
Also in the next category.
accurate, right? That when I pull up all the time. There's a sound bite in there that's actually like a news radio clip. There's voiceover from Bill Clinton responding to different questions at the time in 1994. Right? Like they include a lot of real life like sound bites and primary source within that film. Now again, obviously, Paul Rusesabagina, and there have been questions raised about him, and was he really this hero, or was he
Right.
self-motivated, right?
Well, but
They raised it about Oscar
I was gonna say,
Schindler.
how's that any different than Oscar Schindler?
Right, that's very
We're
true.
also gonna
That's
get
very
into
true.
it.
That's very true. So, I mean, I also love Hotel Rwanda, and to me, it's such a great depiction. And we talk quite a bit about that with the UN's response and comparing it to Sarajevo, right, like Bosnia Herzegovina, and we talk about how two things were happening almost simultaneously, and the reaction by the modern world is very, very different to those two. I find that Hotel Rwanda and that emotional connection, right, seeing something like that with the kids is useful, right, and I think that it's, for the most part, historically accurate when it comes to at least depicting the events, and it has facts throughout the film and at the end of the film, like giving actual like death counts and all those kinds of things, and those are things that the kids really connect with for sure.
Absolutely.
Dan, I'm going to step out. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
All right, take care, everybody.
See you.
See you, sir.
All right, next. I got to get my one for accurate. You're going to laugh at me again. Please don't. Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. You both hate it because you find it not entertaining.
The most boring film.
the
on
plot-
face of
I've
the
tried to
planet.
watch it 3 times.
I
Oh,
literally
here we go.
fell asleep.
It
It must,
literally
it must
fell
not be
asleep.
You must not be intellectually stimulating.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
here we go.
I enjoy that film because of, first of all, being the Anglophile that I am, loving the Brits. It shows an excellent representation of the British Navy. I mean, there's a lot of fallacies with it. The plot's made up. The British wouldn't have sent that much resource after one ship in the Napoleonic Wars. Russell Crowe's too old to be the captain. Captain's usually younger. There's go on about that. But as far as if you want like a look at what the British Navy looked like in naval warfare and like the clothing and the material culture, I mean, there is no better film for that. I won't drag on because most people do find the film boring. They don't like it. Whatever. I don't understand it. But anyway.
Lincoln. Did you say Lincoln?
Yeah, well, I'm getting to that too. Some of the more accurate ones, the opening scene of Private Ryan D-Day.
Oh, for sure.
Good. All the President's Men for Watergate. Pretty darn accurate, pretty good representation. I know I watched it in a college class once. Journey's End, a recent movie about World War I that came out. The plot, I believe, is pretty fictional, but as far as life in a trench and like the end of World War I and what it was like for British soldiers in the trenches during the last German offensive in the spring of 1918, absolutely wonderful. All right, so one historical movie everyone should see. Matt, you had mentioned 12 Years a Slave, and I don't think there's a better film that shows the evils of slavery in a good light, the reality. 12 Years a Slave, I mean, besides the fact it's based on autobiography from the time period, when I see that movie and then I read Frederick Douglass's autobiography as well, so many parallels as to like the first slave owner in that, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, I believe. Like you can see he's definitely the more like kind of the two slave owners, and you can see he wrestles with the questions of slavery in the movie, and you can read Frederick Douglass's narrative, and it's like the same thing. It's the Thomas Jefferson effect. You have a wolf by the ears, you don't know what to do with it,
Right.
Like that kind of thing experience. Do you guys want anything 12 Years a Slave before I move on to the next one?
No, the movie's phenomenal.
Great
I
movie.
hesitate to show it in class. I only
Yeah.
show it to my college kids because it's probably the most honest depiction that we can have of
Graphic,
slavery that we
right.
can put on a screen.
Right.
But I do question, like, you got to make sure you set that up carefully
Yeah.
if you're going to show it. I do love the discussion towards the end with Mr. Bass, who's played by Brad Pitt, who's Canadian and is there, and there's a discussion between him and I don't remember the owner's name.
Played by Michael
towards the
Fassbender?
end. Yeah, it's quite an honest discussion about between an abolitionist and a slave owner as to who these people really are. Are they really people? Are they property? do they feel things? Do they not feel things? So just well done. And the book is like, I mean, if you've never read the book is, the movie's amazing. The book is 100 times better.
Which is usually the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Schindler's List is a movie that probably we can all concur on. Everybody should see at some point in their lives.
I can't believe how old that movie is, though.
I know.
Because
What year did it come out?
I think we're at the 25th anniversary.
I'll say it had to
or
be
30th.
early 90s.
Yeah.
Because I was around the time I was born.
Nice. I knew something like that was coming. When I was substitute teaching just out of college, I had to show it 3 times a day for a block. And I actually got to the point where I would show the film for 1 block, and then I would find something else to do for the other 2, because it is a must see. It is a must see movie for anybody. But it is not a movie that you say to your significant other, "Hey, want to watch Schindler's List tonight?"
I did that.
You're bringing up a Seinfeld episode.
Really? No, it's seriously, because it's like the Passion of the Christ, right? It's a movie that is so
Heavy.
heavy and
Well, The Promise.
emotionally
I felt that
draining.
way about The Promise when we showed The
was also gonna
Promise.
get to that, too.
The
World
Promise
Wars
is
last
another
year.
good movie. A lot of folks don't know that movie. I don't think it didn't get a lot of play.
Well, because of Turkey. So, The Promise is a film about the Armenian genocide. It's the first film ever done on that, and they did a wonderful job with it. The Armenian genocide is really the first modern genocide that people acknowledge. In fact, when the UN was creating the term genocide and some of the rules around it after World War II, the guy that was making a speech about it in a couple interviews referenced the Armenian genocide. He was said, this is the same thing, the same systematic killing that happened to the Armenians in World War I. So that, the connection with Schindler's List as well.
But Turkey as a government still won't acknowledge.
Turkey will not acknowledge it, and it's a bugaboo for the U.S. because the U.S. doesn't want to ruffle feathers with its Middle Eastern ally. Barack Obama said he was going to acknowledge it, never did. Trump, I think, made pretty much every president campaign saying that they will acknowledge it, and then never does. This film, the only one to use genocide in Armenia in the same sense was Ronald Reagan, I believe.
Yes.
In the
These
same
Kardashians
sentence
need
as
to
a
start
president.
using some of their
Don't go
public presence to start speaking out for it. What do you think?
You went there.
I'm just saying.
Yep.
All these people that we follow, right, not using their powers for good.
So The Promise definitely think is a film people should have to see at some point. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. It's extremely well done. Good acting in it. I felt the kids enjoyed it last year when we used it. Good pairing with Schindler's List as far as accuracy and what we should see. Lincoln, Matt just brought up Lincoln. Relatively accurate film. Daniel Lewis is the man. Of course, yeah, that's 3 movies with him. Four? Gangs of New York, Last of the Mohicans, Lincoln. So we only mentioned 3. I was off by 1 that we've mentioned with him in it.
When I was looking up historically accurate movies, because I think a lot of movies I watch, I don't pay attention to how accurate
much do
they
we
are.
question,
But
right?
like
And then how much do
Apollo
kids
13,
question? Yeah.
Apollo 13 gets a lot of credit for
Yeah, it
being
does. It
very
does.
historically accurate. And then ones I never would have thought of as historical movies, but the assassination of Jesse James
Yep.
with Colin Farrell, right? So again, that idea, Western, but very representative of what that kind of life before the FBI and a really truly structured West was,
There is no real judicial system in the West.
Right.
At least not, on a federal level.
Right.
It's usually at the town. And at the town level, it's usually corrupt anyway.
Right. Who has more money?
Right, exactly.
Who's guilty? Well, I don't know.
Or
Who
what
has
family
more?
do you belong to?
Right.
The Earps and the Clantons, and they'll kick her out.
Another scene you need to see, another movie you need to see, not for its accuracy, but because of what it is. I think it's Birth of a Nation, the early 19th century film, 20th century film, sorry, early 1900s film. Birth of a Nation is one of the first motion pictures to ever be, put out. It could be is it the first? I don't know. If
It's not the first, but Wilson called it the greatest movie.
Yes,
ever
and said
produced.
it's all true. And essentially, the movie it takes you through Reconstruction and depicts African Americans in the worst possible light. I mean, there's blackface in it.
The Klans,
The Ku Klux Klan are heroes. That's what you need to know about the movie. And I watched the whole thing in college, and you find yourself almost wanting to laugh as you watch it because you can't believe people believed it to be true. I mean, the President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, Mr. Progressive. Sorry, I had to go there.
and history teacher.
And yeah, that too. And it's a very powerful film. It's all true. The South would not have recovered after the Civil War without the help of the Klan. It basically depicts African Americans as shows them in government and even their average life as lazy. It brings into elements of race mixing, going after put air quotations. The idea of Southern African Americans being obsessed with white women and that whole thing, and you see that permeate through different times in the South, through lynchings throughout history. And so I think if you want to get a good idea of the sense of how far we didn't come in race equality after the Civil War, this film's out in 1913-ish, 1914.
1913.
I think it was 1913. That's nearly 60 years after the Civil War and slavery's over, and we're getting this film. So that gives you an idea how far we didn't go. I think it's a film people need to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it could be a representation, at least a little bit, of how far we have come at this point, too. Like,
True.
The fact that we
On
can
a
sit
good
there
note.
and say,
On a good
this
note.
is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I can't
Right.
believe people believed this,
Right.
right? Like, that gives a little bit of a lending to where we are right now.
But I think it's important too. I mean, teachers can use it to teach historical context,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, and for the students, this is something that we're starting to get into in our classes now, and shifting the Regents exam to things like historical context and reliability. But those are the types of things we can use in the classroom, I think, as teachers, right? Because you show the birth of a nation from 1913, and then you show the more modern titled Birth of a Nation, trying to reclaim that, right? Historical perspective has changed.
Still need to see
right?
that movie too.
And I've seen bits and pieces, and you're right, I haven't had a chance just to see it. But teaching that reliability, teaching that historical significance, because when the movie is made is just as important as what it's showing.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like Monuments. It brings a good monument.
Right,
point,
absolutely,
I think.
absolutely.
Another one is Hostels. It's on Netflix right now. That's a quick one students go watch. Rated R. Make sure you check with parent permissions. We also say Christian Bale.
You went and saw that, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
excellent movie. The plot's made up. It's got Wes Studi in it again, like one of my favorite actors. Really shows a good profile of Indian hating. Of the
I remember that
main
film now.
main character, Christian Bale. I mean, he comes around at the end, kind of. You'll see if you see the film, but the idea of just like the hatred of, and it's set in the early 1890s. So that's the point where Wounded Knees already happened. They're rounding up the last of Native Americans. The frontier is about to close. The Oklahoma Land Rush. Manifest destiny has been fulfilled, and it really shows a good profile of American Indian hating. And then the last film we have here for what you should see, Mississippi Burning. Mike, you can speak to that one.
Mississippi Burning came out in the late 80s, I believe.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman, Willem Dafoe really looks at the civil rights movement and some of the challenges faced by the FBI trying to find 3 civil rights workers that were murdered, and then their bodies were
Freedom Summer?
removed. Yeah, it was a Freedom Summer. Schwerner, Cheney, and I can't remember the third guy's name. But they went to the South. The idea was they're going to register African Americans to vote. Just register African Americans to vote. And they're seen as such a threat to the establishment that the Klan basically puts out a kill order. And the 3 of them are killed. They tear apart the countryside trying to find these guys. The FBI is brought in because these guys cross state lines. There are some real liberties taken by the producers and directors of some of the scenes, but it gives you a good sense of the Klan and their iron grasp on a small town. And not to give away too much, but the mayor of the town, the sheriff, the deputy,
Which is Arlie Ermey is the mayor, which is awesome.
yeah, he does a
He does
fantastic job. The major business people in town, the judge, they're all members of the Klan, right? So it really demonstrates that, because it's hard for us to wrap our brain around how much a group like that can have control of an area. And if they control all those positions, they can control a local investigation.
Which is helpful for students because that's an abstract concept that if they committed the crime, they did it.
Right.
That's a very abstract concept
Well,
for
we've
students to
somehow
understand.
gotten to a point, and we're not going to go down this wormhole, but people just blindly trust officials. Almost.
Right.
So it's hard for them
Or
to
don't trust
grasp
enough. I mean,
corruption.
Look at the just a Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
Let's look how both sides look at the findings. Do we trust that investigation or not? You could see the battle lines being drawn. Not to go down that wormhole, but whenever the findings come out, let's watch the political pundits spin the results as we see.
But we can tie it back to if it's on the screen.
Right.
is it legitimate?
Right.
Because and that's where I think our students struggle with that, because they see it either on Netflix or Amazon Prime or
I guess
YouTube
that's our job to do.
or whatever. We as educators have to start teaching them to become digital, not only digital learners, but digital consumers.
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
To understand, you really need to go out and check. I saw this really cool YouTube video on whatever. Well, you better fact check that thing, because just because somebody has it on YouTube,
And it's
does
easy
not
and quick
make
to
it-
do with today's
Right.
technology,
Oh,
which is the best
my
part.
God.
and a quick story about that. We were talking about the Confederate flag in my class, and I've had long talks with some of the students in the hallway about it. And one young man gave me a video that he wanted me to watch, and I watched the video, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome. This will totally explain to you then why rednecks use the Confederate battle flag as their flag." And the video was full of inaccuracies, the one of which I almost fell out of my seat, claiming that the Confederacy freed their slaves before the North enforced the Emancipation Proclamation. And I'm like, that's flat out wrong. Like
Right.
you cannot use that as a fact when you're trying to debate an issue like that. If you're going to debate issues, you got to be using real facts, truthful facts. And he didn't want to hear that when I talked to him about it. He was like, that's not true. It was in the video. And I'm like, yeah, but the video is made by a person.
Right.
And it goes back to when producers and people, they make films for entertainment. You got to be careful why other people are producing videos as well.
Also, the idea of accessing facts with a preconceived notion, picking and choosing the
Oh,
ones
yeah.
that will fit your argument instead
Cherry
of,
picking.
that's a whole big issue we could get into too. Well, we're getting short on time. Any final thoughts? Films, history.
Just and last kind of statement on it, it's always entertaining to go to watch a movie, and it's always interesting. I think it's more interesting personally when it's based on some event that happened, right? We're inspired by that, but you got to be really careful.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh yeah.
My students in our class right now are looking at The Greatest Showman. Fantastic film. But wow, when you start digging into P.T. Barnum and what's really going on there, you got to be really careful about what you take as literal fact and not.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's okay to be entertained, right? And that's where you and I, right, are always butting heads, because I can be entertained and know that it's strictly for entertainment without like getting mad that the history is off, right? I can value something for an entertainment value versus historical value, and it's like, I think, anything in life, right? Like the way you approach it and how you use it matters, right? So if I'm using it as entertainment, it's totally fine. But should I use something that is complete fallacy as a teaching tool? Unless I'm using to teach how
bad it is.
media can make things look bad or can get things wrong, then no, right? I'm not going to use it as a teaching tool, but I can totally be entertained by it as long as it's not. But I guess if it were in my wheelhouse, something I was really like passionate about, and it was inaccurate, I would probably be mad about.
Well, and that's the part that I think I need to understand too, is things can be for entertainment. Every time a historical movie gets brought up in my family or with my in-laws, it's like, Nick, what do you think? And everybody goes like, oh, he's not going to like it because it's historically inaccurate.
I think I've actually said those words
Probably
in a discussion a few
you
times.
probably have.
That might have been my tone. I don't
We
know.
want to thank you for listening today. In January, hopefully February, we put out our first episode on genocide. There might be a multi-part series. We'll have to see. Email us your questions at hollyhistory65@gmail.com or tweet them to us at hollyhistory, or stop by our classroom if you're a student in school. Give us a shout out, comment on the video question. Let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us today.